How's it going? This is James Valvis coming at you from beautiful Issaquah, Washington. And it is a beautiful place. It's about as lovely a part of the country as you're going to get, even though they're starting to build it up too fast and make it less beautiful. Hope that somehow we can put the brakes on that a bit and at least try to save some of what's left of our little hamlet here of beauty. And even in my 20 years here, I've seen it just grow and grow and grow, and soon it'll be Issaquah City, which is unfortunate. What I'm doing here is something different than I've done before. I've so far I've done my poems or my short stories, my literary work. They've been one kind of post I've made. Another kind of post I've made is the popinions, which are opinions based on outside my own thinking or my own events, my own life. They're not based on me, but based on the world, politics, art, philosophy, that kind of thing. And the third kind of thing that I've done thus far is to talk about myself with a direct focus upon something. So I've only done one of those, but that one was on vulnerability, on my inability to be vulnerable and the cost of that. So I plan on doing more of those, but those will be focused talks on a specific part of my life or a specific part of my personal dealings with the world. What I'm going to do here in FreeForm is exactly what it suggests by the title, which is to just talk. Just talk as I would talk to anybody, as I would talk to a friend sitting across from me. Now, of course, if I had a friend sitting across from me, that friend would give me some feedback, and they would put a little dialogue, and I would put a little dialogue, and they would put a little dialogue, and so on. But what you're going to get here is basically just me going off on whatever I just feel like talking about. And it might be some philosophy, it might be some history, it might be some humor, it might be some just what I'm doing, whatever comes to mind. So, imagine if we were in a car and you were my wife, and my wife doesn't talk very much. She's a kind of person who prefers to listen rather than talk, and I do most of the talking in the car. But I free associate. One minute I'm talking about Gator baseball, and the next minute I'm talking about geopolitical situation in the Middle East, or then I'm talking about bananas. And so that's what I plan on doing here. And I'm getting a lot of Facebook notices. That's the beeping that you hear. I'm sorry. Apparently, I'm very popular at the moment, which I'm not usually that popular. In fact, one of the reasons I can do this and I can just say whatever I want to say, I could probably say, "Yay, I'm a Nazi! Yay, I hate all black people," or whatever I want to say, because nobody's listening to this stuff. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I can just say whatever I want. By the way, I'm not a Nazi, and no, I don't hate black people. But if I wanted to say whatever I wanted to say, I could just say it because there's nobody listening anyway. So, I could talk about, some of the projects I have in mind, because my daughter's leaving for college soon, and that's going to free up some time. It's not going to free up a lot because she's pretty self-contained at this point, and she does take up some time. I have to cook for her. I clean up after her a lot, and I basically have to deal with her and go to events with her and do a lot of other stuff. And with her gone, all that frees up all that time. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like once every other week, she goes to visit her grandparents in Maple Valley, and she goes and stays overnight on Fridays, and we go pick her up on Saturdays. Well, that's a 2 or 3 hour expenditure of time on Saturdays, every other Saturday, that now becomes free. At least I think it becomes free. I don't know. Maybe my wife wants to see her mother, and we'll drive out there anyway. I don't know. But there'll be more time overall, and so it's going to give me more time to do stuff. And you would think that somebody who has a relatively light schedule to begin with would not be pressed for time, but I'm constantly pressed for time. I'm constantly struggling to find more time because I'm doing a little of this and I'm doing a little of that. Basic light maintenance takes up time, and then sleeping takes up time, and exercise takes up time, and this small thing takes up time, and then you get hit by something where you weren't expecting, and now you're taking your wife to the doctor, and that takes up time. And ultimately, a lot of projects that you would like to work on do not have the time to work on them, and you end up scrambling to get things done. But there are certain there are definitely things I want to do, and I have like a couple of novels in mind, a play that I want to write. One person, it's actually a 2-person play, but only one person's on stage at the time, and it's an itch that's been I've been aching to scratch for a long time. Another one. Wow. I don't know what they're so interested about, but I must have said something. So and then there's this controversial kind of novel that I've been working over in my head, called Reparations. That is, I don't even know if it'll ever be published because it's going to be so controversial, but you can get away with a controversial book maybe if you're like Stephen King. I don't know why you'd want to write it if you're Stephen King, especially if he's a leftist of just the dumbest sort. I mean, he really is. He's just absolutely foolish leftist. But if you're that established, you can maybe write a very controversial book and get it published. But if you're just a nobody like I am, I'm not so sure that's that's the way you want to start. Start your writing business. But I want to write it, so I don't care. I mean, at this point, I'm almost 50 years old. I've really got nothing to lose. I'm a nobody. I've been a nobody my whole life. I'll probably die a nobody. And I'm just going to write what I want to write. And in this case, it's a book about race relations as I see them today. And it's not going to be entirely flattering to the left. It's just not. It's going to be an indictment of the way they view the world. And it's a long time coming that someone handles this in novel or literature form. And we'll have to see whether or not it gets picked up. It won't be completely, anti-left, and it won't be obviously anti-left. I mean, it won't be. It's not a political track. It's a novel, but still, there'll be. It'll be clear. Gotta drink the water, man. It's hot today. So, So I had that. I want to do those two novels, and I want to do the play. And then I want to, put together another poetry book. And man, I've got a lot of poems that can be made into a book. And I don't like to spend money on poetry. I just don't like to do it. I mean, in addition to reading fees, and I'll get to reading fees in a opinion at some point. But in addition to that kind of nonsense, I don't like to send to contests because it's just a lot of money out without any guarantee of money in, and they wave these $1,000, $2,000 in front of you, and I'm just not convinced that they're picking it out of. If I thought that they were picking it out of merit, merit was 100% the entire selection process. If I thought that they were just looking at the poems and they said, these poems are the best and we're choosing them therefore, I wouldn't even mind if I didn't win, if I lost and I was just helping a magazine exist in that way and seeing some really great poems come out into the world. But that's not what's going on. You know that people are getting picked because of their gender, or because of their race, or because of their other things that have nothing to do with merit. And since that's the case, it makes it hard. I don't have those boxes that are checked off. I'm just a ghetto rat from white male who supposedly has all this privilege, and so it doesn't make sense for me to enter them. Now, there are going to be exceptions to this, but those exceptions are unknown. You don't know when you're sending to a contest. You don't really know if that contest is being fair-minded. But I have a few ideas. There are certain journals that have repeatedly published my work, and if they've done that, then I trust them. I trust them that they're going to be fair. I trust them that most times, not every time, but most times, they're looking at the work and they're saying, I like this, I don't like that, and it doesn't, the whole concept of the thing is just to put out work that they really like and admire. And that'd be great. I mean, so there are certain ones, and I'll probably end up doing that somewhere at the start of next year in September or October. And I have to go through a lot of poems. I mean, you're talking thousands of poems overall, but there are certain poems that have been published and published in good places. And I've been going through titles and thinking about what kind of titles I'll use, and some of my more famous poems, like Something, have just banal, worthless titles. You wouldn't name a collection of poems Something. It would just... But, that poem was in Best American Poetry. That poem was in, The Sun. And then you'd see a poem like Into the Dark is would be a better title for a collection. And it's also published in The Sun. But it's does it really fit the work? Not entirely. And then a poem published in Plowshares was The Deer. That's not going to work. And so you end up, some of the best poems have bad titles, and some of the worst, I shouldn't say worst poems, but some of the lesser poems have better titles. But I've been going through it, and I've been thinking about some of them. I got a poem that I really like called Acts of Cowardice, which would be really a wonderful title, and also probably fit the work. But there are other good ones too. It's hard to think of them offhand, but there are quite a few other poems that have really terrific would be terrific titles for collections. But again, it really depends. Obviously, the thing is, I think I could put together 2 or 3 or even 4 collections of material and have them all be decent. I don't think that the fall off in the number 1 collection to the number 4 collection would not be very high. It would not be like ripping apart the dregs, and I think that when you look at How to Say Goodbye, my original poetry collection, there's a bit of an unevenness there. There's very high level poems, and then there are poems that are just okay, and then there are poems that are just almost filler, but not too many filler. I think some of the short poems might be filler, but you never know. You never know what's going to hit with somebody either. Sometimes you think, yeah, this poem's just okay, and you put it out there, and it's like, oh, I love this poem. It's my favorite poem ever. So as a writer, you just write this stuff, and then you put it out in the world, and you see what the world thinks. And sometimes they think what you think. A lot of times that's the case, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes they don't care for a poem that you absolutely love, and sometimes they love a poem that you don't think much of. And so that's another thing I'm thinking about doing. Is I'm thinking about sending out poetry manuscripts to contests to finally have a second book. And my ultimate goal with that would be to send to the Lamont Poetry Award, which I believe now has a name. There's somebody attached to that. There's some poet that it's named after now. It's not the Lamont Poetry Award, but it's for an author's second book, and it would be my second book, and I would like to win that, but I don't know what the new title. Maybe it's James Laughlin. Maybe he's being honored with that now. I think that might be right. So that would be something I'd be looking forward to after I publish the book. By the way, if you're interested in publishing my book and giving me a lot of money, just save me all the trouble. By all means, let me know. I'd rather not go through the whole hassle. That's why I've been putting it off so long. Besides, I'm not entirely sure that publishing books of poetry is a necessary or productive thing to do. I know that there are poets out there who have just literally shelves and shelves of their own books where they've published. There's a guy named, what's his name? John something. But every year he puts out a book of poetry, and every year it sells 3 copies, but he gets hundreds of copies of this book, and then he sells 3 copies, and the next year he's got a new book out, and he keeps, this is my 32nd book or something like that, and it's like, okay, you have 32 books, I guess that's an accomplishment, but back in the day, back when I first started writing, there was a writer by the name of Gina Bergamino. She was a poet, and she had her own press, and she was putting out a chapbook every other week. And when I'm talking about chapbooks, these were they had paper covers, a line drawing on the cover, maybe a title, and then 6 or 7 poems in them, and they'd be short poems too. They'd be 8 or 12 lines a piece, and she'd send these things out for $3 a piece. And I remember I bought one time, and I opened it up, and I thought I was getting a real book, and I saw I read it in 3 minutes or whatever it took, and I was so angry. It was just God, this really, I was poor then, I was really struggling. I didn't have a lot of money, and so when I spent $3 on something, I could have had a Wormwood Review or something cool like that. And it's, a Chiron review or whatever I was reading at the time, which gave me dozens of poems and by really good authors. Or I could have had a freaking meal at McDonald's or whatever I needed at the time. And instead I was left with this, this just crappy chapbook that wasn't, clearly the author and the publisher, who was one and the same, just didn't really think very much of. I learned from that. And I decided I was never going to do that. I was always going to give the reader at least what they paid for, if not more. I take great pride in that. I don't charge people look, poetry it's a hard sell to begin with. There aren't a lot of people who want to read it. There aren't a lot of people who enjoy it. I don't know why. I love the art form. And it's one of my favorite things to do in the world is read poetry. But there's not a lot of people like me. They just don't exist, and they don't. So if you're gonna blow, $10 or $12 or $15 on a book, man, that book better be special. That book better be something that puts you in a frame of mind that makes you grateful to the author. And if you're not doing that, then what the hell are you doing? I mean, why are you inflicting upon people, dreck again and again, year after year after year? And it's all just an ego trip at that point. You're doing it you're not even selling it, because after a while people catch on. They start to say to themselves, I'm not only do they say, I'm not going to buy your poetry anymore. They don't just do that, but they say, I'm not going to buy poetry anymore. I got burned on this, $7 chapbook that's 8 pages of garbage poetry. and I'm just not going to buy poetry anymore because it's a waste of my time and money and effort. And it just sucks, you know. We're not. People are not very forgiving of poetry. They're more forgiving of movies or something like that, because they go to see a bad movie. It doesn't stop them from going to the movies ever again. Unless you're me, then it might. But for most people, they're a little more forgiving because they've seen a lot of really good movies, in addition to seeing some bad ones. But with poetry, that's a different story. It's a tough sell to begin with, and now you've made it tougher. And so these people get on my nerves when they're publishing book after book after book of just garbage. Just stop doing that, please. If you're one of those people who do it, the four people who read this probably are not the people who do that, but the four people who are listening to this are probably the people who are the exact opposite of these people. But but for those people who are doing it, I just wish they would stop. It's terrible for the art. It's great. It might be great for your vanity, but maybe not either. And you start to look at all those books collecting dust on your shelves. Nobody wants them. I mean, that can't be great for your vanity either. But anyway, I am thinking about doing that. I'm thinking about sending out for some contests, and maybe winning $1,000 or so, if that can happen. I wouldn't even care if I just got my money back, just so I had some books to give out to people, because they keep asking me for them. They keep saying, when are you going to publish another book? When are you going to publish another book? They want it, but it just takes effort. I don't feel like self-publishing, and so and nobody's. The first book kind of fell in my lap. Kevin Lee, the publisher of Aortic Books and Reverb, the magazine, just showed up one day on Facebook and said, "You know what? I need to publish your book." I'm like, "Okay, you really need to do that?" He's like, "Yes, I do. I need to publish your book. You're getting published all over the place, and somebody needs to bring out a Jim Valvis book." And that's what he did. And he did a great job on it too. And he sold a lot of copies, and I sold out all my copies. I gave away a few copies to people I, probably shouldn't have given away copies to. Some of them. Some of those people. I'm not even talking to them anymore. Some of them have just gone the way of the dodo because they don't like what I said about this or that, and so they, off they go off the back of the line, So I plan on doing that, and then I have this idea that I will convert one of the novels I've already written into a homemade movie. Nothing fancy, nothing Hollywood-esque, but just something digital, something that would I could take the one of the novels that I've written and make it into a full-length movie. There's no reason why I couldn't do that. I have the material written, and I think it would make pretty good film on top of it. Now I have trouble publishing them. Part of the reason I have trouble publishing them is because I'm a 45, 50-year-old white guy in a field that is not very interested in publishing 45, 50-year-old white guys anymore. Young adult writers are, there are some older men, but not many. Most of them are long established by now, by the way. There are not many new 45, 50-year-old young adult writers. They don't exist. Or if they exist, they're not finding a home. It almost doesn't matter how well you write. Because the readers are all female. That's part of the problem. Or part of the issue. The readers, they're no longer even trying to appeal to boys anymore, or to publish books that will sell to boys, because boys are just not reading. They're into video games, they're into something else, but they've given up reading. Now, part of the reason they've given up reading is because nobody writes for them anymore. They don't want to read this girl garbage, and I say that. I say that not to insult the girl stuff, But what I'm saying is, when they write for boys, it's still girl stuff. They're still not appealing to boys. They're appealing to girls, or boys who are not, what's the word? Typical boys. They're appealing to different kinds of boys, boys who are more sensitive than the typical boy. And so, if you're not going to give the boy Indiana Jones, he's going to walk away. If you're not going to give the boy, and if you're going to write, as I have, a girl book, or a book that appeals to girls or appeals to both boys and girls, then you're better off writing that from the point of view of a female. You're better off being a female, because if it's the same reason with romance novels will, go about doing their. Women will not buy romance novels written by men. Not usually. I'm talking about genre romance novels. Sometimes they'll buy like The Notebook or something like that. They'll buy, standalone male romances sometimes, but they won't. But when they go to pick up their Harlequin romance, they don't like to see written by Michael Montfort or something like that. They'll say, heck with that. I'm going over here to Regina Summons or something, and off she goes. So anyway, those are some of the things I plan on doing. Hopefully planning on losing some weight. I need to lose weight. I badly need to lose weight at this point. And that's going to be a challenge. Every year it gets harder, and every year I get fatter. So it's a double-edged sword. So I plan on doing that as well after she goes off. It'll be easier to diet when she's gone, because I'm not trying to feed I'm not trying to please the taste buds of 3 people, but only 2. My wife's a much more easily satisfied with a salad than my daughter is. My daughter would be miserable if I just fed her salads all the time. So I'm going to be doing that. What else am I going to be doing? Yeah. So that movie, I have no idea how to make a movie, by the way. None. If my YouTube presence doesn't already prove that, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a camera, and a real camera. I tried to take a video of me playing, not really even playing, just demonstrating or reviewing my arcade machine, and I for about 40 minutes I talked straight about all this great stuff about this machine, and I went on and on and on, and little did I know that my camera ran out of memory on my phone and just stopped. So I'm talking to the air, and it's on the tripod, and it's looking out at the machine, but the thing was not on, and I'm just there talking away like I'm doing now, and saying, "Oh, you should see this wheel," and there's nothing there. And then when I tried to download it onto Facebook, guess what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I got to figure all that out. I got to go back and I got to get a real camera and figure out how to put that stuff online, because I do plan on doing a lot of gaming stuff on the I might even start up a new YouTube channel, and not intermix the literary and opinion stuff with the gaming stuff. I know not a lot of people, not a lot of gamers are interested in politics or interested in literary work, and not a lot of literary people are interested in video games. It's just there's not a lot of crossover. I'm unique in that way, in that I'm interested in both of them. I mean, everybody's unique. If you're a poet. My friend Matt Borzen is interested in martial arts, and so he's doing both. He does his literary work, and he does his martial arts, and a couple other things he's interested in. And so everybody has that side thing that they're interested in, but that side thing is usually not something literary people are interested in. Not usually, sometimes, but not always. They may be, they may find it, mildly amusing, but they're not going to sit there and watch you play, 20 minutes of Pitfall on your arcade machine. It's just not going to happen. They might watch you play for like 3 or 4 minutes something, but they're just so there's a gaming community, there's a literary community, and never the twain shall meet. But I don't know. I may separate them. I may not. It'd be cool to bring some of those together, to bring some of the people who really love literary work into the gaming world, and to see what the retro gaming world is like a little bit, and vice versa. But I don't know. I know some of my favorite YouTubers do several things. I have one guy whose politics I follow. He has his garden update every week or so, and you follow him around his garden, and he's I love his garden updates. I also have a garden. It's a container garden, and I love spending time in the garden. I really wish I had a big garden like he does, like just like a whole big backyard where you could like plant onions and turnips and collards and all that stuff, just tons of it, put it everywhere, dig it deep into the earth, and have these big bulbs growing, and just the weather for it and all that stuff. That would be heaven for me. But I got my little condo and my Seattle weather, and there's only so much you can do in that area, and and then there's the time issue as well. I mean how much do I want to have a garden as compared to I want to write that novel? You have to weigh that stuff, especially as you get into my age. You start to say to yourself, time keeps on slipping, and you just, it just goes. You might be hearing my arcade machine in the background. It makes noises when it's spinning and doing that kind of stuff, and I'm not paying attention to it. Usually I put the sound down, but I didn't do it today. So what else do I want to do in the future? Here, I'm thinking about going back to college myself. I don't have a bachelor's degree. I have an associate's degree. My brother, he just like a couple of days ago received his master's in science and criminal justice. Very proud of him. Extremely proud of my brother. I'm just over the moon for him. He's just an incredible guy, and he's completely and totally, I take 100% of the credit. I inspired him to be the academic success that he is. And of course, my daughter's going to college. My wife has a degree. My sister-in-law, my brother-in-law have advanced degrees. She's a doctor. He's a lawyer who argued, in front of the Supreme Court. And both my in-laws, the parents, they have advanced degrees. And so I'm looking around and saying, gee, I'm kind of the odd man out here. I'm just kind of sliding into the past. I mean, you can only hold up that best American poetry nod so long before you start to like sink in your seat a little bit and say, yeah, maybe I ought to go finish that school business that I keep saying that I'm going to do. And so that's a possibility on the horizon as well. I mean, part of it is I would really like to go. When I was young, when I was 18, just going into college, what I really wanted to do was get into the University of Iowa's Writers Workshop, and that was my dream, was to get into that Writers Workshop. And some of my favorite writers went there or taught there. Vonnegut taught there. And I just thought that, it would just be terrific if I could just, it's the best writing program in the country. And of course, I don't know why I thought I even had a shot at it. I was not a very good student, and I had not accomplished anything as a writer. And, but I really, that was the goal. And so the idea that I would go to get a MFA at Iowa, that that's much more plausible today than it was then, even though I'm older. I don't know. You have to wonder if they're going to look at me and say, well, we'd rather have somebody who has like 30 years or 40 or 50 years of writing ahead of them than somebody who has 10 or 15 years of writing ahead of them. Maybe that might be a better use of our time. So, you have to, so in addition to being white and male and straight and Christian and all the other things that people are not overly fond of, now I have to deal with the fact that I'm also getting up there in age, and they could say that there's not there's no bias there or no bigotry there, but we all know that there is. It just exists, and so that's the other thing I'm thinking of. So there's a lot of stuff opening up now that the kid is ready to be punted into the world, and I just I think maybe I should end it there in this free form. It's kind of funny because I thought I'd free form and talk about a bunch of things, but what I mostly ended up doing was talk about my plans for the next few years, and that's so. I hope you found this interesting if you made it all the way through it. I don't know why you would continue to listen to these things, but I'll keep making them because, I want to collect my thoughts on some of this stuff anyway, and it's kind of working. It's just a kind of a video diary. Okay, thanks for listening again, and as I always like to say, God bless you.